Hello everyone, this is Jack and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I make DIYs, travel vlogs, as well as food vlogs. So go check those playlists out after this video. Last week, I finished a set of Cyberpunk guns for Neotropolis. I got accepted as a dancer, and this week, we're doing like the evil / dark edition. Last week was like this white princessy, like vibey cyberpunk set out of water guns, and this week we have another pair of water guns, and they're gonna be more sleek. It almost looks like Loki if you are a Marvel's fan. But yeah, anyway, if you missed that video, go check that out after this one. We have water guns that kind of have a green and orange base already. And then we're going to transform it with gold and of course rhinestones like last time and shiny vinyl. So let's get to it. All right, so these are the water guns that we're working with today. They are slightly bigger and a different shape than the previous ones. I'm going to call the previous ones the Magical Girl ones just because that's the vibe. And then I'm going to call these the Loki ones so that we understand what we're working with. Okay, so these ones I gave a spray of primer and paint of black, and it kind of has like a satin sheen. However, this one had slightly bit of an issue like last time with the Magical Girl guns. I sprayed a couple of coats because the coverage was necessary to really eliminate the color so I could work with a black base, but on certain parts the paint did chip off again. I think what other DIYers do when they work with furniture is they actually sand off the surface area of what they're working with first, and then they spray this on, which is how it sticks to the structure of whatever it is they're painting. I didn't do that, so my bad. In order to combat this, I had to take out my trusty acrylic paints once again. And so, lesson learned. I also had to really go back and do some of the crevices on the details because there are just some areas that the spray paint just couldn't get. So, trusty paintbrush. I still needed a black base on the gold areas because the underlying color would seep through otherwise, even if I had 2 coats of the gold. I opted for doing the cool looking trim as the gold, and to be honest, I really love that I trusted my judgment on this. Although I referenced Loki, I actually have never watched the TV show, and I'm not really that big of a superhero fan. Nothing against Marvel or the other companies like DC. I just figured this was the most relatable type of example, which is why I'm using it. So I did have a couple of options that I could have chosen from, and I actually went with the one that was more green because I wanted to harken back to more green aspects. It's also my partner's favorite colors, and if he wanted to have a pair of Cyberpunk guns, I wanted him to have a pair to hold as well. I thought that the orange duotone one was too close to the original color and was kind of getting off track of what I initially had envisioned, and so green it was. Instead of mapping out each of the areas one by one and cutting them out individually, I decided to map everything out on the same sheet this time to expedite the process, and I saved a lot of time, I think, by doing this. I just had to remember which part went where. Since I was using a Sharpie, I didn't want to label them by number on each piece, so I had to have a really good memory. I also really liked this green because it reminded me of a scarab or a June beetle's wings, especially with the iridescent shade. I thought it was just really cool. Besides, who doesn't like a nice emerald green color? Also, I've totally forgot this, but each of these vinyl sheets have a protective layer on top of it. I like to keep it on there until I have a piece that I cut out, but it's totally optional for you if you want to rip it off first and then deal with fingerprints and gluing on the right side later. Because the glue is pretty viscous and kind of hard to get out of the bottle while squeezing and spreading everything and doing everything all at once, I actually used the corner of some of these vinyl pieces to spread it out over the surface before actually attaching it on. It did take a while for it to dry off, so it gave me plenty of time to work around and make sure that the pieces really were in the angles that I wanted it to be. All right, did any of you used to sell candy or chocolate when you were younger and you would get prizes at school for like going to an amusement park or something? Well, I still have these boxes from back then, and now they store all of my notions, which is great. I also can't seem to throw away glass jars, and so my mom and I have repurposed all of these to holding rhinestones and miscellaneous trims and stuff that would normally get lost if you haven't put them in a container that would house them without scratching them or anything else. My mom was smart and also cut off what the dimensions and specs were of every item that was being housed in a container so that we know what the sizes are and the colors are, etc. Apologies for the in and out focus. It really does like to close in on the action. But blinging this part out was one of my favorite parts of remaking these guns. Honestly, if I loved monotony, I would do this for a living because I'm pretty sure you can make a lot of money just blinging out anything with rhinestones. So last time I did the Magical Girls set symmetrically, whatever I did on one set I did to the other, but this time I figured why not just go with the flow, and so that's what I did. I ended up putting larger rhinestones that I had mixed in with the smaller ones, and I just sprinkled that wherever I felt like on both guns. The bigger gemstones were easier to put onto the guns with my hands. Luckily, the smaller ones were the only ones that I needed to use tweezers for because using gloves was just way too complicated, and this glue sticks to everything, which is why I had the gloves in the first place. All right, so the next step that I actually didn't do with the Magical Girl guns is putting nail polish onto these Loki guns. Yes, you heard me right. I don't see that much of a difference between resin and enamel nail polish in the sense of which to get glitter hardened and accessorizing your items further. Let me explain. As a kid, I used to take all of my flip phones and all of my mini jewelry boxes and deck them out with nail polish that had glitter in it or iridescent shades and then put rhinestones on them. And my parents would get so upset because they were like, oh my God, that was brand new. What are you doing to them? And I was just personalizing it and making it my own. And little did I know, this translates perfectly to what I'm doing today. Alright, so you know how it looked super smooth with me painting the outside of the LEDs that I put on the Magical Girl guns? Well, this was the actual struggle of me figuring out what worked best for the situation. As you may or may not have seen, I am part of a Burning Man community, and so the whole thing about burners is that we're gifting. We don't expect anything back. However, at this Neotropolis event, everything's about bartering. This is a sister event from Wasteland Weekend, which is more of a Mad Max style of event, and both of those are more about bartering. So a bunch of creators will make stuff that they are willing to gift to other people, but in exchange for something that the other creator has made. And so I decided to keep it simple this year and make LED necklaces. It's cyberpunky. It's actually functional because you won't be a dark wad in the middle of the night and people could see you. I know a bunch of these people will have a lot of LEDs already on their outerwear, but you know what? It can't hurt to have a little bit of bedazzling around your neck. So for the silver lights, I kept them a bright white, and for the warm light LEDs, I decided to try two different methods of gold paint. First of which was the acrylic that I've been using this whole time. That's been my tried and true. And the second was to wrap around the LED cap with electrical tape and then spray paint it gold. I hung it on a fishing wire just so that it's easy for me to take it off using scissors later. I even tried spray painting the actual chain because, as you can see in the background, the chains that I got are stainless steel, but it's such a yellow gold that I was like, okay, if we're gonna be out in Cyberpunk era, it will probably be more copper or rose gold just because of technology. But the problem with that was it irritated my skin after testing wearing it out for just an afternoon. And so I decided to stop spray painting everything because I didn't want people to get rashes. Instead, I purchased a rose gold chain, and that was closer to the spray painted LEDs. and that could be worn over clothing and not around a person's neck only. If you had a collar, it would have been fine, but I didn't want to assume that every person was going to wear a collar while wearing my necklace. I used the yellow gold necklace to align the length of the rose gold one, and in the end I decided to make 3 different kinds just because the yellow gold was just too yellow and I didn't want to waste that since the pack came with half of that color, and I just acrylic over the LED light body, and then I made a copper/rose gold one, and then obviously the silver one is as it was. Okay, back to the guns. Remember these? I was literally figuring out all of this while I was doing both guns. Creative problem solving. I do like it, actually. It helps me keep my brain sharp, and now it was time to assemble everything. Literally, the Avengers assembled. I swear I'm not a fan, but it just is funny because I was using that reference the whole time. But yeah, I put together all of the pieces and I decided to seal both of the guns with some Mod Podge just so that the paint and enamel and nail polish could just stay as long as possible while being handled out in the desert, and hopefully pass that time too. Oh yeah, I did have to take apart the Magical Girl tubes again just because I wanted to get all 360 of those tubes with this glossy finish. All right, are you ready for the final reveal? Techie music, please. Alrighty everyone, these are the final guns. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it so that other people can learn more about how to transform everyday items to something that's magical and whimsical and sci-fi, you know, futuristic. I am going to be showcasing Neotropolis as a whole event next week. It's a recap video, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell so that you know when I have cool concepts like this coming out. All my socials and links can be found in the description box below. And until next time, keep curious everyone. Jack out. Pew, pew, pew. Do these still turn on? Nope. That's a negatory. What about you? Oh, this one does. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew. Bye. These are so light. They don't have any physics to spin, but it'd be cool if it could.